All battles are wrenching. But if there were ever an example of a dogfight which contained every single experience a fighter crew would love and fear, it might be the fight that happened on May 10, 1972. Randy Cunningham and Willie Driscoll were among those who lived to tell about it.
As I pulled off target, remember I was a bomber on 10 May, I dropped rock eyes on Hydron Railroad Yard in a storage area and pulled off target, reversed to the starboard, and I made the comment, Willie, look at that target we just bombed. It was a mistake. I was not thinking about MiGs, because at that time Brian Grant was in a trail position like this on me. 4 MiG-17s flew right between he and I. One of them came down in a swooping pattern like this, and he called Duke MiG-17 at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock is right here, not over here where I'm looking. As I reversed like this, a MiG-17 tracers were coming by my cockpit. I went ahead and broke into him. He overshot. His wingman went pure vertical like this. And the exact thought that went through my mind, his nose is high, he can't get to me before I get to him. So I just rolled underneath like this as he's overshooting, reverse, squeeze the trigger, he blew up that quick. And now I reverse back and I look at him, his nose is coming down, and I'm starting to unload to get my knots back to get away from him. And as his nose is coming through, I called Brian, I said, get him, baby. I'll drag him for you. And Brian says, I can't. I got 2 MiG-17s on me. So I unloaded and got away from him. Brian got away from his MiG. We ended up in combat spread again. We had all kinds of gas, all kinds of weapons. We did a cross turn, went back up in the vertical, and looked back behind us toward the target. There were 8 MiG-17s in the defensive wheel. There were some Phantoms in that wheel, which was a mistake also. Commander Dwight Timm had a MiG-17 here, he had a MiG-21 here, and a MiG-17 here. Well, as I came through that circle trying to knock the MiGs off of his tail, the other MiGs came around behind me, so I had 4 MiG-17s behind me. Willie says, Duke, look up. There's 2 MiG-17s at 2 o'clock high. And I look up, and here comes 2 MiGs, and my comment to Willie, I said, Willie, there can't be any more MiG-17s in the world. They didn't make that many. And they weren't. There were 2 MiG-19s. And they strafed, and they came up high like this, and I watched them, and they went vertical, and I said, Willie, watch them. Tried to go back to help the XO, and he says, Duke, they're coming in again on belly side. And I said, XO, you're on your own. And I reversed and broke up into them. They fired going by. I stayed away from their guns, reversed like that, and they just kept running. That'd have been very easy to take myself out of the fight and go chase those MiGs. But now the priority, I've got somebody in trouble, my XO. He's almost clear across the circle, so now I unload like the burners again, come screaming down, and those MiG-17s start coming in on me. So I finally got the XO to reverse. The MiG turned after him. It looked like this. As he goes underneath like this, the MiG reverses his tail, and I'm right here. I blew up this MiG. The other MiG-21 split us this way. The other MiG that was out to the side just disengaged. I'm sure they didn't see me coming, and they saw their buddy blow up, and they didn't want any part of it. We decided just to get out of Dodge at that time, hauling toward the Gulf of Tonkin, and you can see the water up ahead of us heading east, and that's where I saw a single MiG coming at me. My exact comment to Willie, watch this, Willie, I'm going to scare the blank out of this Gomer. Pressed him right down the snot locker like this, and all of a sudden his wing roots lit up with a machine gun, and tracers started coming by, and it surprised me. I went vertical like this. Okay, now my mind comes in, Gomers, unless they had an advantage, would run. Hanoi was that way. Okay? So I went pure vertical, totally expecting the Gomer, the MiG, to keep running and head toward his field and unload. And when I came back over to the side like this and looked in the vertical over my ejection seat, straining to look behind me, I looked up and I saw a little set of Gomer goggles, a little Gomer scarf, and we were going canopy to canopy. Came over the top like this, and he shot out here ahead of me. I broke to get out of his tracers, unloaded, went down, and trapped him at my 6 o'clock, which is the wrong place to be. Unloaded the airplane, got 500 knots, working back to the horizon, and then went pure vertical, about 4 or 5 Gs. Forced the overshoot here with him down below me. Stood on full rudder, full right stick, which causes the airplane to kind of flow around like this and come around. Now, I'm sitting, and I remember thinking at this position, Gomer, you just died. So I'm starting to bring my weapon system on to bear. He waits till my nose is committed, and then he put out his Benson and Hedges, broke into me, forced the overshoot, left rudder, left stick, rolled. And this is called a rolling scissors.
Cunningham and Driscoll did not realize it, but they were fighting the North Vietnamese ace known as Colonel Toon, because he had 13 American kills to his credit. They worked hard to keep the F-4 in a vertical plane to maximize the advantage of power and thrust. Running low on gas, they knew that as they lost altitude and speed, the MiG was gaining the advantage. Now, in less than 1 minute, they must kill their enemy or escape. Otherwise, they were going to die. Each time Cunningham went vertical, Colonel Toon would match him move for move. 3 times they went into a vertical rolling scissors, but neither could gain an advantage.
Willie came up one time and says, "Duke, maybe we better let this guy go." And I said, "Willie, no." And I remember just gritting my teeth and going, and thinking, pulling, and I would have rammed him if I had to at that time. Came into a third time on a head-on maneuver like this, only this time, for some reason, I think every time I'd out-zoomed him in this vertical pull. He pulled his nose up first, nice and easy, trying to save the G and energy. Well, when he pulled his nose and looking at a place like this, I came back to idle, put out the speed brakes and dropped my flaps. And I just really put on the G here to end up sliding behind him. But now I'd misjudged, and I ended up about 600-700 feet behind him. I mean, I'm looking right up from here to the wall at him. And I can't shoot him with a Sidewinder missile. It's in mid-range. At those airspeeds, he has got the advantage even though he's out in front. So I tried to disengage once I saw my mistake, stood on the rudder like this, trying to keep the F-4 from departing. And as I rolled this direction, his airplane went like this and departed. And looked, and when he reversed like this, I expected him to really totally pull back in and try and shoot me. But instead, he started running. And I remember thinking, well, I'm going to get away. And then he went a little farther, and I thought, well, if you're going to run, I'm not going to. So I reversed, used just rudder, unloaded the airplane, got a Sidewinder towed, shot, and a little piece came off the airplane.
In under 10 minutes, they had scored 3 victories and had become Vietnam's first jet aces. But now the hunters were about to become the hunted. Suddenly, without warning, their Phantom was hit by a surface-to-air missile which blew off the tail of their plane.
Willie wanted to eject because the airplane was on fire from him back, and we were still over. It's like flying over downtown Los Angeles. I mean, it was just solid city below us. And I knew I'd be a POW if I ejected, so I said, "Willie, you stay with this damn airplane." I said, "I'm going to try and get it out over the water." He says, "Roger, I'm right behind you, Duke." Willie cut that out, you know. And as we rolled and rolled, it got about 1 mile off the beach, and I heard a loud explosion, and the airplane went into a real violent spin. And I'd see land and water and land and water, and I'd see wind blows from ocean to land. If I eject here, I'm still going to be a POW. So I said, "Willie, stay with me. I'm going to try and get this thing 1 more mile off the beach." And the controls were nothing here. I didn't know it. It had blown my whole tail off. I'd always brief Willie not to ever eject until I say, "Willie, eject, eject, eject." And I only got out Willie E and bang, he was gone out of the airplane. By the time we had bombed the target, pulled off target, engaged 22 MiGs, shot down those MiGs, got engaged by other MiGs, disengaged from them, got hit by a SAM, rolled the airplane off, and coming down in a parachute and hit the water. It was a pretty busy day. When I trained and put myself in a mental attitude to go out and win in the air, I never really considered what it was really like to take another human life. And it's something that you just kind of gloss over. You go out and fight and you train to do a job, but you really don't allow yourself to think in depth of that. At least I didn't. And when it actually happened, even after coming back on the ship after the first kill, they had a party. All the skippers were there, all the people in the celebration, and then someone walked up to me and says, "Hey, Duke, what's it like to kill somebody else?" And that was the first time that it really hit me square in the face. I couldn't go to my fellow fighter pilots because that wasn't macho. I couldn't go to my commanding officer because I thought he'd worry about me in combat after that. So I went to the only person that I thought I could, and I went to the chaplain. He told the skipper in the long run, and I told the skipper that I could do the same thing over again, but it just bothered me a little more than I thought it would.